I believe we've met. You already know who I am. And if you're listening to this, I'm dead. What you're about to hear are my last thoughts before leaving this world. I hope they can give you as much closure as they have given me. Hugh Hall entered the room. What is it, Isaac? Isaac pointed to his computer monitor. We're seeing erratic weather patterns all over the world. It just started happening without any warning. Hugh replied, Strange. This doesn't sound good. Meanwhile, Luna was sleeping calmly under a tree, but was awoken by the sound of thunder. When she saw the sky, she immediately knew what it meant. Her blood ran cold. He's coming back. Elsewhere, Sam and his wife Lilith had discovered ancient carvings at the center of a tomb. The carvings described a terrible creature, one who harvested their people. A creature that has gone by many names, but prefers itself to be called Lenny T. Puppet. Audrey gazed off at the night sky. It was a long, dark blue blanket with yellow dottings and strokes of purple and green light. Despite the sky's entrancing beauty, her mind was occupied with other things. Her memory of the phantom disappearing into the vortex wouldn't stop repeating in her head. She was powerless to save him. But now she did have power. The memory of that shadow creature returned. Whatever it was, it had the orb, and Audrey wasn't going to let him keep it. Her focus was abruptly interrupted by a voice. Audrey? Alex asked. You home? Audrey snapped out of her haze. Oh, sorry. I've got a lot on my mind. Alex spoke again. I know. You should. Are you going to tell your mom about this? Well, actually, I've been working on a spell recently. An illusion spell. I think it might be able to temporarily make me look normal. That way I'd never have to tell her. How are you going to keep this a secret? I don't know. What if I can't go back? What if this is the way things are? But Audrey, you can't just disappear. Well, maybe I should. I've never done anything with my life before. With my powers, I can finally make a change. So, that's it? You're leaving everything? No more friends, no more family? Don't you have anyone special? I have a mother, but I can't bear to see the look on her face. And honestly, I've never been close to anyone before. I already never existed. But you can't just throw your life away. Audrey clenched her fist. Why not? It's my life. Now's my chance to finally be someone. Besides, it's more important I find out where that shadow creep is and put a stop to him. Audrey's fist lit up with indigo flames. Alex shrieked and jumped back. No, Alex, Audrey hesitated. She stared into her flaming fist. It triggered a long, forgotten memory. The last time she had seen her father. Alex muttered, Audrey, how did... Audrey carefully tossed the fire up and caught it with her other hand. She smirked and said, I could get used to this. She noticed something moving in the corner of her eye. Immediately, she recognized the silhouette. She swiftly whirled around and threw the flame toward her target. The flame landed on a tree and instantly engulfed it. After a second, the flames died down, and the tree had become a pile of ash. Audrey felt startled by her own power. She looked back at Alex. She was shivering. Jesus Christ! A little overkill, huh? A voice called out. Where are you? Show yourself! Audrey yelled. The shadow slithered off the ground and held its hands up. You! Audrey lifted her fists, taunting him with the possibility of another fireball. Wait! Please, don't incinerate me into a pile of ash just yet. I just want to talk, the creature said. Audrey held her ground. Yeah, sure you do. Alex placed her hand on Audrey's shoulder. I think we should hear him out. Audrey lowered her hand. What do you want? Ratuk reached inside his stomach and pulled out the orb of Oculus. I can't get this damn thing to work. Your magic might be able to turn it on. Really? And why do you need it? Are you going to save your boss from that alternate dimension? What? No. God, no. I just want to get out of here. Look, if you want to use it to risk your life saving the blind phantom, be my guest. I just want to get as far away from this timeline as possible. How do I know I can trust you? Audrey asked. Look, do you want it or not? Ratuk said, waving the orb midair. Audrey considered this offer. All right, sure. I'll activate the portal device and send you off somewhere. We'll never have to see each other again. Ratuk nodded in acceptance. Yes, perfect. But you aren't strong enough to cast the spell on your own. You'll need a magical stimulant. Lucky for us, I know exactly where to find one. Ratuk stretched out his arm, offering to shake hands. If you're willing to trust me, that is. Alex stepped forward and said, excuse me, Mr. Ratuk. Ratuk, right. Can we, talk this over in private? Sure. Alex pulled Audrey to the side. She whispered, What are you doing? We can't trust him. Audrey whispered back, I don't. I'm just going to help him for now. And once I figure out how to use that orb, we can bring back the phantom. But what about him? She nodded in Ratuk's direction. Let's hope we can get the phantom back before he tries anything. But if we can't, Audrey lifted up her hand and activated the blue fire. Alex's eyes widened. Audrey, this is crazy. Don't worry, Alex. I'm starting to get the hang of this. That demon won't know what hit him. Audrey was so enthralled by her plan, she hadn't noticed how unsettled Alex really was. Audrey turned to Ratuk and said, We accept your offer. I help you, you leave forever. Ratuk clapped his hands together. Great, glad we could come to an agreement. Now come on, we've got no time to waste. He turned around and began walking away. Audrey followed close behind. Alex muttered to herself, Be careful, Audrey. Audrey and Ratuk made their way through the forest. The sky was beginning to darken and thunder, but they had bigger things in mind. This way, Ratuk said. We're almost there. Audrey kept a close eye on Ratuk. She wanted to make sure he wouldn't try anything. I know you're spying on me, he said. I didn't expect you to trust me. But listen, I was once a lost soul with nothing to live for, until the blind phantom saved me, or almost did. He offered me a second chance at life, and I squandered it. All I want now is to be alone. You can have the orb, just to leave me out of it. Audrey was surprised and somewhat saddened by how legitimate his voice sounded, almost as if he wasn't lying. She tried to think of something to say to comfort him, but nothing came to mind. Oh, what am I doing? She thought quietly to herself. That's how old Audrey thought. I can't afford to make mistakes now. He's just trying to trick me. He's still a demon after all. At that moment, they came to the entrance of an old mine shaft. Well, this is it, Ratuk said. Are you sure? Audrey asked. There's no way this place existed for years without being found, Ratuk replied. The blind phantom works in mysterious ways. You of all people should know that. The pair entered the mine shaft and traveled deep into the cavern. Eventually, they discovered the mystic barrier between the world of humans and Wild Rain City. The barrier was an unbreakable illusion that separated these two worlds. So we just jump in? Audrey asked. Well, we don't just stand here, Ratuk said. Together, the pair stepped forward and melted through the wall. On the other side, there was an entire town. A miniature society run by cryptids and monsters. Of course, some were more sapient than others, and a few spells were put in place to make sure everything held together. Try to keep your head down, and let me do all the talking. You have no idea what this place is like, Ratuk said as they walked across the road. As Audrey looked at the town before her, she noticed all kinds of monsters and creatures walking around. Some of them she had recognized as urban legends. Some of them had even set up small businesses. She never knew monsters were capable of things like this. She always saw them as just, well, monsters. They stopped outside a small hut on the border of the town. So you're sure this is the guy? About as sure as ever, Ratik said as he stretched forward and knocked on the door. Spike, you in there? An old feminine voice called out from inside. Jimmy, can you get the door? Another voice called out. I can't, Ma, I'm busy. Don't talk back to me, young man. Answer the door. But, Ma, Jimmy, they're waiting. Fine, I'll get it. Christ, Ma. Audrey leaned over to Ratuk and said, I'll ask again. You sure this is the guy? Ratuk said back. Now, I know he sounds like much, but he's a professional. The sounds of mumbling and locks clicking began to manifest behind the door. Eventually, it popped open. On the other side was a boy with grayish-green scales all over his body. He wore a long brown coat and brown pants. His eyes were yellow, and he had a line of spikes on his back. He was still mumbling insults at his mother. When he looked up, he was immediately enthralled by what he saw. He stepped forward and said to Audrey, hey there. Name's Jimmy Spikes, but everyone just calls me Spike. He reached his hand forward, offering a handshake. Audrey looked down at his hand. It was covered in a strange black residue. She looked up and said, hi. I'm Audrey Simmons, but, you can just call me Banshee. Spike noticed how she didn't shake his hand, then realized what was on it. Oh, don't worry about this stuff. I make potions. It's kinda my whole thing. Ratuk stretched his body between Audrey and Spike. Actually, that's why we're here. We need one of your infamous concoctions. Spike's face lit up. Really? Well, come on in. Let me show you my workspace. Audrey and Ratuk stood in Spike's room, watching him mix potions together. So, what do you need this magic booster for? Ratuk answered. I'm leaving. Spike steadily poured a pink fluid into a glass bottle. Really? Oh, well, I'm gonna miss you, man. He held out the solution and said, Ta-da! A magic-enhancing potion. He handed it to Audrey and told her, You know, if you ever need anything else, SE Formula Eye of Newt, Love Potion, I'm your guy. Although she found Spike messy and somewhat over-eccentric, Audrey couldn't resist smiling at his offer. The moment was, of course, interrupted by Spike's mother. Jimmy! The gnomes are getting in the garbage again! Spike called back. I get it, Ma, just wait up! He turned to Audrey and Ratuk and said, A spell like this is gonna burn a lot of energy. Find somewhere secluded before casting it. Jimmy! The gnomes! I'm getting it, Ma! God! Audrey and Ratuk stood at the center of a deep cave. She looked down at the bottle in her hand. If drinking this would give her the ability to reactivate the orb, maybe it could make her strong enough to rescue the Phantom. And how exactly did she know Ratuk wasn't trying to manipulate her? For all she knew, a whole army of monsters could be waiting on the other side of that portal. She gripped the bottle tighter. Okay, Ratuk said. I think I'm ready. Audrey popped the cork off the bottle and readied to drink it. But before she could, a laugh echoed through the cave. What have we here? The last piece of the most powerful configuration in the cosmos. Audrey immediately suspected Ratuk of betraying her. You led me into a trap. Ratuk's eyes widened in beseechment. No, I swear, I didn't know what's going on. Out of nowhere, several tendrils emerged, trying to stab them. Ratuk grew holes in his body so the tentacles couldn't pierce him, while Audrey swiftly dodged them. However, in doing so, she loosened her grip on the potion. She dropped it and it shattered. She held out the orb of Oculus as if readying to use it as a weapon. When she caught a glimpse of the creature, she focused all her anger into the orb. Purple electricity built around it. A bolt of energy shot forward. It created an enormous explosion that rattled the entire cave. The explosion left a hole in the side of the cave wall. He must have escaped. I have to go after him, Audrey said as she rushed outside. Ratuk lifted up his hand and yelled, Audrey, wait! She entered the forest, angrily searching for the creature. My, Audrey, I never took you for the type to strike first. How do you know my name? She called out. I know whatever I need to know when I need to know it, the voice answered. You don't know what you're dealing with, and I've had far more delays than I'd like to admit. So please, make this easy for both of us and hand over the orb. Audrey gritted her teeth. I don't have to be afraid of monsters like you anymore. The voice laughed. Oh, but you should be. The original Phantom would have maybe stood a chance, but you're just a pale imitation. By then, Ratuk caught up with Audrey. Hey kid, you don't want to do this. She pointed the orb towards Ratuk, readying to fire. But before she could, a tentacle stabbed her in the arm, causing her to drop it. The tentacle quickly wrapped itself around the orb, then retreated back to its body. Emerging from the shadows was Lenny T. Puppet. The pair was stunned by Lenny's arrival. He tipped his hat and said, Ta-ta! I've got a universe to destroy, then vanished into the shadows. Ratuk attempted to help Audrey to her feet, but she denied his aid. I almost had him. If you hadn't... She ached in pain. You're hurt, Ratuk said. He tore off a piece of his body and wrapped it around Audrey's arm like a bandage. It faded away and vanished. Her wound disappeared with it. I didn't know you could do that, Audrey said. Neither did I, said Ratuk. He looked back at Audrey. Look, I know you don't like me very much, but know this. I am not your enemy. We have to work together to stop that thing. Audrey thought about this. Ever since she got her powers, she had been different. She never really felt like the blind phantom. There was something missing. She sighed. You're right. What's the plan? Lenny sat atop a nearby mountain. He tore his stomach open and pulled out several relics. The Vlastarin key, the blood of a pure-souled artificial life form, the ember of despair, and the orb of the primordial synod. He drooled with anticipation. I should give a few words before doing the honors. Oh, what am I kidding? There's nothing to say. He lifted up the ember and slammed it on top of the orb. The ember's fire grew until it completely engulfed the orb. Audrey and Ratuk arrived to witness the ceremony. What's he doing? Asked Audrey. I don't know, but it looks bad, Ratuk answered. Lenny popped the cork off the vial and poured the golden glowing blood all over the orb. It immediately hardened, encasing it in a golden cloak. A key-shaped hole slowly grew at the side of the sphere. I don't like this, Audrey said. I'm going in. Ratuk reached out his hand in a vain effort to stop her. Hey, creep! Put your toys down and fight me! A smile edged across Lenny's face. You have no idea what you're doing. I've already won. He lifted up the key and thrust it into the orb. The two melted together and formed into a prism. The prism burst into a blinding white glow. Green cracks formed across the sky. The heavens shattered, revealing the true horrors beyond. Several ginormous creatures were seen on the other side. They resembled a squid with tentacles that turned into eels, a long centipede with an anglerfish lure atop its head, a bear with the head and tail of a crocodile, a crab with the wings of a moth, and a snake with the claws and stinger of a scorpion. A voice echoed above. Theravis, your crimes against this multiverse have gone too far. You shall be annihilated, Lenny called at them. No! This is your punishment for pretending to be false idols, for allowing the filth of this world to worship you. There's no stopping me now, Synod. He turned his gaze on the light. Nirvana, here I come! Audrey struggled against the blaze. She inched closer and closer to Lenny, while trying not to look directly into the light. Ratuk followed her close behind. Lenny was so busy laughing that he hadn't noticed how close they were getting to him. Audrey reached forward and grabbed the light. It burned her hand and she screamed in pain. The light grew brighter and brighter. Eventually, it was all nothing but a white void. And even the sounds of Lenny's laughter and Audrey's screams had all faded away. And then, well, I woke up. I began to feel my own body again. I was back in bed, safe and sound. I slowly opened my eyes. It looked like it was sometime afternoon. Had I only been asleep for a few minutes, or had I really been out for days? My sudden return to reality grew frustrating. I had seen so many things, lived so many lives, and now it was all over. Just like that. No closure, no takeaway, just over. I thought about Ashley for a moment. Then I remembered some things didn't get to have closure, no matter how bad you want it. I leaned over and grabbed my alarm clock. It just said 0. Must be out of batteries, I thought to myself. I sat up and got out of bed. I opened a few drawers, picked out some clothes, and after slipping a t-shirt on, I stopped in disbelief. I slowly turned my head toward the window in front of me. Outside was an infinite black void. Random objects and chunks of old architecture floated in the vacuum beyond. I yelped and fell backwards, hitting my head on the side of a drawer. Ow! I groaned while rubbing the injury. Are you okay? A voice next to me asked. Yeah, I lurch up. My jaw dropped. Sitting on my bed before me was Audrey Simmons, the Banshee. I rubbed my eyes. Audrey? You're real? She replied. Of course I'm real. Why wouldn't I be real? She looked around, then asked, Is this your room? Uh, yeah. Do you like it? I nervously asked. Not really. It's kind of lame, honestly, she replied. Oh, sorry, I sighed. She seemed to notice my disappointment. No, I didn't mean it like that. You know, uh, this is actually the first time I've been in a boy's room before. Really? Yeah. Well, this is the first time I've had a girl in my room. She smiled. I felt compelled to smile back. A third voice rang out. It was Ratuk. He said, Sorry to interrupt, whatever this is, but we still have to find Lenny. Hearing that name made my blood run cold. Picturing Lenny in reality, all the things he could do to me, the people I loved, I grabbed onto the side of my desk to hold my balance. I felt as though I was about to vomit. Audrey noticed my reaction at the mention of his name. You know something about him, don't you? I nodded. Yeah, I do. I know he's bad news. Whatever you're going to do, just do it away from me and my home. Ratuk shoved himself forward and said, Listen here, pal. I get that you're scared of him. Trust me, I am too. But if you've got any critical information that can help us, I suggest you spill it now. I shook my head. I'm sorry, I don't know any more about him than you do. Ratuk humphed. Come on, Audrey. This kid's just wasting our time. Let's find a way out of this place. I turned around and banged my head against the wall. I heard Audrey begin to say something, but she stopped herself and left with Ratuk. I could hear them opening my bedroom door and leaving. Oh, why? Why me? Of all the people to get caught up in some dangerous supernatural bullshit, why'd it have to be me? The kid who's most scared of dying. Then again, I don't really have much to live for anyway. What if I did go with them, just to see what would happen? Even if I died, at least I could say I died fighting a demonic tyrant alongside paranormal superheroes. Oh, what am I talking about? It all just sounds like some dumb fantasy anyway. I'm probably just gonna hide here and wait till I starve. Suddenly, the whole house began to tremble. I saw several red, veiny tentacles slither outside my window. The ceiling to my bedroom cracked open. The entire roof was torn off my house. Above me was a gigantic, white sock puppet with a razor-sharp grin plastered across its face. There you are, he said in a booming voice. I turned and ran for the door. I pulled the knob so hard, I almost tore the damn thing off its hinges. I ran through my house, not sure where to go. Either way, he was above me, and an infinite abyss was below me. The floor cracked and started to spread. He was peeling the whole house apart, tearing it in two pieces. I picked a random side and ran to it. I tried to grab onto something, anything at all. The halves of the house tipped to the side. My body slipped as the forces of gravity took over. Eventually, I just couldn't hold on anymore. I slid down the floor and fell into the void. I closed my eyes and screamed. Suddenly, something flew by and caught me. I opened my eyes. It was Ratuk. He had morphed his body into the shape of a kite and saved me from the fall. With him was Audrey, of course. She held her hands together and concentrated. A small flame appeared inside her palm. It grew larger and larger, becoming a ball of fire. She thrusted it forward towards Lenny. It hit him directly in his face, causing half of his wool mask to burn off, exposing the mangled flesh beneath. Direct hit, Audrey yelled. She put her hands together again and generated another ball of fire, only this one seemed to grow too big. I can't. It burst into a million tiny embers, flinging the three of us backward. We landed on the chunk of a nearby floating Greek palace. We recovered quickly, but Lenny was speeding towards us. Ratuk turned and yelled, He's after the boy! Get him out of here! I'll hold him off! He shot forward and collided with Lenny. Ratuk stretched his body out like a net and wrapped himself around his opponent. Audrey reached her hand forward. Ratuk! I grabbed her hand and told her, We have to leave him! Come on! The two of us ran off as the creatures behind us tussled with one another. We jumped from one ancient piece of architecture to another. Eventually, we found a hiding place inside a slice of an Egyptian tomb. I think we're safe now, Audrey said, out of breath. I threw myself on the ground and said, But for how long? Where are we even supposed to go from here? She sat down next to me. I don't know, but maybe we can figure it out. What do you mean? I asked. If that thing is after you, clearly it's for a reason. If there is, I don't know it. I just fell asleep one day and woke up with him staring me in the face. Did you do anything before falling asleep? No. Are you sure? Nothing important happened beforehand. No. She sighed in defeat. I considered telling her about Ashley. If I was going to die, at least I could get a few things off my chest. Audrey, can I talk to you about something? Sure, what is it? I used to have a friend. Her name was Ashley. Okay. One day I was drawing some, stupid fight scene in a movie I'd come up with, and she walked over and asked me what song would be playing. Something like that had never crossed my mind before. We started talking, and before I knew it, best friends forever. We were close, but not that close. It was her dream to be a famous composer. She was decent at most instruments, but her favorite was the piano. She told me it was because it had a bittersweet feeling to it. Well, apparently forever isn't long enough. She wanted to be the best musician by any means necessary. She started losing sleep, failing classes, abandoning friends, all to be the best. I never understood why she acted that way. At the time, I just thought she was over-obsessing or something, I don't know. I didn't know how hard she was really pushing. I told her she'd become a fanatic and that I didn't think she cared about me anymore. I never knew this was all she had. I didn't know about her drunk stepdad. I didn't know about her anorexia. I didn't know. Because I didn't want to know. I should have reached out. I should have told her she was enough. I hadn't realized, but tears were falling down my face. I wiped the thin liquid off and apologized to Audrey. Sorry for that. No, it's okay. Honestly, I feel a little bit better now. You know, Audrey spoke, my father was a firefighter. He usually was never around, and when he wasn't, my mom would be worried sick about him. But one thing no one ever saw coming was that a fire would start at his own home. My mom got out okay, but I was trapped inside. My dad went in to save me. That was the last time I ever got a good look at his face. He had saved so many people, and he died saving me. I refused to let my life go to waste. I don't care why that hell puppet wants you. He'll have to go through me. Audrey's words had lifted my spirits. Maybe we would find a way out of this. Ratuk and Lenny hurled their tendrils at each other. Ratuk kept growing holes in his body to avoid getting stabbed. Lenny, on the other hand, didn't need to, as he was able to regenerate from anything. Ratuk was growing nervous. Nothing he did had an effect on his enemy. Lenny wrapped his tentacle around Ratuk's neck and slammed him down. He crashed against a 1920s train. Lenny squeezed Ratuk's neck harder and harder. Ratuk's body shrank and morphed. His tendrils shrunk back into his body. He coughed and wheezed. Lenny bent down and said, "Don't worry, kiddo. I'm not gonna kill you. I just want to talk." Ratuk spat in his face. "Fuck off!" Lenny stuck his tongue out and licked off the spit. "I know you're not my biggest fan, but you really want to listen to this one." Ratuk nodded, and Lenny loosened his grip on him. "What do you want from me?" "Ratuk, my boy, why do you work with them?" "Because I'm not just some monster. I'm not like you." "Oh, but like father, like son." "Son? You don't mean to tell me. Haven't you ever wondered how you ended up in that doll world? How do you? Demons aren't native to that planet, are they? And you can't travel between universes either. How did you get there?" No. One of the main ingredients to the gateway to limbo is the blood of an artificial life form with a pure soul. Took a few years of experimentation to perfect it, and along the way, Lenny pointed to the ground. He had no shadow beneath him. Rata gasped. It can't be. It's your destiny to be this way. Ratuk slammed his fist on the ground. No! Why are you telling me this? Because, in truth, when I killed that pure-souled artificial life form, I cried. I had a hand in its creation. I saw her as my own progeny. For a moment I questioned why I was doing all of this, if it was all really worth it. But clearly something changed your mind, didn't it? Exactly. And I just want you to know, he slid behind Ratuk and placed a tentacle on his shoulder. I won't make the same mistake with you. Audrey peeked around the corner of the tomb. Maybe we can steal the portal key from him. Leave him stranded here. How do you plan on doing that? I asked. I don't know, she shrugged her shoulders. Improvise? A shadow grew and spread across the tomb wall. It peeled off and unfolded, revealing Ratuk. He coughed out a puddle of blood and said, Christ, that prick is unkillable. I stepped forward and hastily asked him, Ratuk, I think we have a plan. Do you think you can get close enough to Lenny to nab his portal key without him noticing? I think it's great you have a plan and all, but we don't really need one. I found an exit. I asked him, wait, what? You just found one? Well, it did have the word exit written on it. I thought about my earlier experiences in this place. A magic exit door just lying around wasn't really a stretch. Okay, fine. Maybe you did. Audrey cut in. Even if you did find a way out, what are we gonna do about Lenny? Well, if he's after the kid, we should let him go, and we'll hold off Lenny. Audrey turned to me. That creep wants you. You should go. I wanted to say no. I wanted to go after Lenny and heroically sacrifice myself, but I couldn't. Just like I couldn't tell Ashley the truth. The real truth is that I didn't want to die. I'm a coward. I nodded and said, You're right. I'll get as far away from him as I can. Audrey placed her hand on my shoulder. When you get out of there, don't look back. I want you to live your life, be happy, and forget that this ever happened. I said nothing. I just nodded my head silently. I stood at the edge of the floating tomb. I turned and saw them heading the opposite direction. I held back tears and continued forward. I jumped from floating platform to floating platform. Eventually, I saw off in the distance a tall gray mountain. I had recognized it. I remembered it giving me motivation. That's probably where the exit was. Even catching a small glimpse of that mountain gave me the confidence I needed to keep going. Audrey peeked around the corner. She saw Lenny tearing buildings apart, calling for Bradley. Lenny's mask wasn't burned anymore, but she hadn't noticed. She turned to Ratuk. On the count of 3, the pair ready to attack. 1, 2... They leaped forward. 3! Ratuk threw spiked tendrils while Audrey generated another fireball. Lenny lifted his tentacles to shield himself from the attacks. 2 against 1, eh? How about we make this a fair fight? His face peeled in half, then his entire body split in 2. Nerves poked out of the 2 halves and swiftly built a new body. First the bones, then the muscles, and finally the wool mask. Audrey turned to Ratuk and said, Did you know he could do that? I looked at the chasm before me. If I don't make this, I guess I'll just fall forever. I stepped back and ran forward. I leaped through the air. As I was falling, I grabbed onto the edge of another floating structure. I lifted myself up. Before me was the platform that the mountain settled on. I was almost there. I ready to make one final jump. My feet lifted off the ground, and I flew forward. I reached out It was just outside my grasp. Then out of nowhere, a red tentacle shot up and wrapped around my arm. It slammed me down on the platform. My face smashed into the stone, creating a blood-stained crack. The tentacle dropped me on the slab. It lifted up the rest of its body. It was Lenny. Half his mask was still burned. Now we can have some goddamn privacy. Lenny, but how? I may or may not have tricked Ratuk into sending you here. He thinks I'll spare you, and believe me, I will. Why? Why not kill me? Can you just explain why the hell you've been torturing me? Torturing? I don't know what you mean. I've been trying to save you. Save me? From what? Oh, you see, Bradley, you're very, very special. You're what is called a dreamer. While others only see what is right in front of them, you, my boy, can see what could be. You see potential where others see destruction, opportunity where others see loss. In fact, it's the reason you're here. It's the reason this place even exists. Wait. Are you trying to say that all this is just in my head? Yes, but also, no, it's a little more complicated than that. A voice from behind me said, "A dreamer doesn't just see." I fell forward in surprise and quickly picked myself back up. Lenny was hovering behind me. When they embrace their gift, they lucid dream. They awaken the ability to do anything. And I mean anything. I wasn't sure why, but those words sent shivers down my spine, as if I knew exactly what he had in mind. Where do you fit into all of this? I asked. Me? It's simple. I'm a dreamer too. You were? Did you awaken? Is that why you're like this? Sadly, no. It was a bit more complicated than that. I can't awaken. My timeline is located on a dimensional plane known as fiction. Yours is located in reality. So all of this really is just a figment of my imagination. Again, it's more complicated than that. I, much like you, was a dreamer who lived in a world run by the most vacuous. I was stuck in a dying world. Everyone else just wanted to give up, wait for the end. Some didn't know, some didn't even care. But it wasn't just that. To them, nothing mattered. They'd rather lie down and wait for the end. In truth, I always wanted children, someone I knew could take care of the future. But dreamers are a dying breed, and I was the last in my timeline. I refused to procreate with a lesser being. In that world, all I wanted was to get out of there. And as it turns out, that was only a hop, skip, and demonic summoning ritual away. So while the rest of my pathetic family was stuffing themselves with the Christmas turkey, I was evolving into the ultimate life form. And once I was ready, I slaughtered them like the fat, squealing pigs they were. But I didn't stop there. Oh no, I didn't. Those pathetic fools wanted to die, so I kept killing. I killed the neighborhood, then the city, then the country, then the world. Hell, I even discovered alien life, and you bet I wasted them too. With every soul, I grew more and more powerful. I became so almighty, I could traverse the multiverse. And that's when I saw you. You, Bradley. I could feel you with my telepathy. Your mind felt familiar, your pain, your desires. It reminded me of how I once was. And that's when it hit me. With our powers together, we can liberate both the realm of reality and fiction. Oh, are you seriously Trying to convince me that all those deaths were justified? That your goal of liberation made it okay? You continue to misunderstand. They aren't real. Their lives don't matter. I always knew I was superior in my world, but when I got my powers, when I gazed into infinity and witnessed the face of God, I knew what it all meant. I was superior for a reason. I had been given divine power because I deserved it. I kill people because it's what I like to do, and an all-powerful deity doesn't need rules or morals. That is what I want for you, Bradley. You want me to be a killer? I want you to be who you are. What if I hate who I am? What if I don't want to be myself? You'd rather submit to their pathetic will than accept your destiny? No, you're confused. You need guidance. You're insane. When are people going to stop saying that? There is nothing wrong with me! Is it really that hard to believe? This is just how I am? He began wrapping his tentacles around my body. I guess I just have to make you understand. Suddenly, 2 copies of Lenny crawled into view. Right on time, he muttered. They had their tentacles wrapped around Ratuk and Audrey's unconscious bodies. Ratuk lifted up his head. I'm sorry, kid. It was the only way, he said weakly. The copies melted down and fused into the prime Lenny. He looked at Ratuk. This one thought he could save you with a bargain. Poor fool hasn't learned a thing. He turned to Audrey. And the girlie here never stood a chance. Maybe if she hadn't tried to suppress her rage so much. He lifted them up and said, They aren't dreamers like us. They aren't even real, but you care for them. Why? Because think about it. They're just a girl and a shadow. A lucid dreamer is God, and God can treat his disciples any way he wants. I stared into Audrey's unconscious face. No, I won't. You can't make me. Then I guess you won't mind me doing this. One of his tentacles shot upward, piercing Ratuk's chest. He screamed and coughed. Then Lenny dropped his quivering body to the ground. No! I shouted. Audrey awoke and noticed what had happened. Ratuk! She shouted. He laid on the ground, coughing and wheezing. Ratuk? I stuttered. But Lenny wasn't done yet. Or how about this? He wrapped another tentacle around Audrey's neck and squeezed. She clawed at the air while gasping. Stop it! Let her go! I called in vain. Oh, Audrey, if only you had embraced the privilege your powers gave you. He leaned in and whispered, Maybe then you wouldn't have died a sissy. A loud snap echoed through the darkness. Audrey's limp body fell to the ground. I fell to my knees and shut my eyes. I didn't care what Lenny was going to do to me now. I just wanted it all to be over. I heard his voice. When we first met, our minds collided. You witnessed a few of my memories, I witnessed a few of yours. You seem real confused about that Ashley gal. My eyes popped open. Shut up! Lenny took a step back. I mean no disrespect. It's just that you can save her now. He pointed at the 2 corpses he made lying on the floor. You can save them, too. I mean, picture it. A perfect world where you're the center of attention. You can do whatever you want. Spend time with whoever you want, real or fictional. Live a life without shame or fear of who you are. He stretched out a tentacle as if offering to shake hands. You can make this all go away. I wiped away my tears. Really? All this? Swept under the rug? It will feel like a bad dream. Then screw it. I reached out my hand and shook Lenny's tentacle. He smiled and said, "Glad we could see eye to eye." He stuck a few tentacles underneath his mask and peeled it off like a snake shedding its skin. Underneath was a grotesque, burned, veiny mass of flesh. His eyes were white, bulging and completely without pupils. He had no lips. The top of his thick, pointy teeth could be seen dangling off the edge of his mouth. Red scars and veins stretched and spread across his face. And below it all, on the front of his neck, between his chin and his tendrils, a wide hole filled with sharpened, yellow blades. I nearly threw up seeing all of it at once. The blades pushed themselves aside, revealing a long, meaty tunnel. The tunnel was so far, I was almost certain it went out the back of his head. "Now," he said, "stick your hand in the hole." I hesitantly reached forward while gagging. As my fingers touched the opening of the cavity, several thin, miniature tendrils started whipping at my hand. I cringed, but I kept going. My hand went deeper and deeper, all while Lenny smiled his sickening smile. When I least expected it, the blade snapped back into place, stabbing into my arm. I screamed in pain, but then that pain turned into pleasure. It was almost a good type of pain. It stung, but it stung in all the right places. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, I was in an empty abyss. The thin tendrils dangled from above. They seemed to be stretching infinitely. They had somehow burrowed into my skin. They held me up, keeping me from falling eternally. What is this?" I shouted. Lenny's eyes and mouth grew out of nowhere and floated next to me. "You might not like this, but it's necessary. You tricked me! This is exactly what I promised. If you want to lucid dream, you have to accept the truth." The tendrils dug deeper and deeper into my body. "All those years others had judged you. Now it's your turn to be judge, jury, and executioner." They crawled through arteries and spread through nerves. "You need to stop denying who you are." I was beginning to go numb. "I know it hurts at first, but trust me, you can get addicted to the suffering." I tilted my head back and tried to scream. "And now you can finally give all those ungrateful troglodytes what they deserve, especially that girl Ashley." I didn't even have any air in my lungs anymore. "She was the worst offender. She tricked you into your friendship. All she ever cared about was herself." A single tear slipped down my cheek. You're wrong. You're wrong." All at once, I saw visions too fast for my brain to keep up with. They looked like memories, happy moments with my friends and family, but things changed. I started killing them, and worst of all, it looked like I was enjoying it. I was covered in blood, laughing, pulling eyes out their sockets, crushing skulls, popping organs. I wanted to look away or cover my eyes, but you can't look away from a memory. You can't hide from a thought. "All creatures that live are capable of hatred. Suffering is the only absolute the universe will ever know. It cannot be beaten, cannot be escaped. It can only be joined. I felt that feeling again, the one I had when I had first thought of Ashley. It was all my fault. Everything, whatever I touch is destroyed. And that's a good thing. Rules are made up, morals are lies. Why sit down and conform to the masses when you can show them your true nature? True nature? Hi. Hey, what are you drawing? Oh, this? It's a fight scene. You don't have to ask the context, it's way too complicated anyway. Well, I like complicated. It's the opposite of simple, and where's the fun in that? I know, right? Things are so much more fun when it's less straightforward and obvious. So, are you gonna tell me what's happening? Oh, basically there's this bad guy, and he's like a demon from another dimension, and he's trying to invade Earth. And so there's this other guy who's like a robot, but also a wizard, and he shows up, and saying it all out loud makes it sound kind of dumb. No, it was fine. It sounds very intense. Have you ever wondered what song would be playing in the background? Music? Come to think of it, no. Well, I think an intense story needs an equally as intense soundtrack. Yeah, I guess you're right. We should work together on something. Really? Yeah, it'll be great. And who knows, maybe one day you'll make the biggest blockbuster in history, and I could be the lead composer. Whoa, a little far ahead, don't you think? I guess, but there's nothing wrong with planning ahead. No, I suppose not. true nature? It all made sense now. I get it. I mean, I really get it. It was sitting right there in front of me all along. I was just too petty to notice. My eyes tore open. I was still dangling in the abyss, wrapped in Lenny's tendrils. Moving my arms caused a great pain, so I forced them to move. I grabbed handfuls of the thin red vines and tugged on them. This could kill me, but that's better than the alternative. I ripped the tendrils out of my skin. They started whipping and flailing around, but I kept going. Soon there weren't enough to hold me, and I fell into the abyss. As I was falling, I grabbed my arm and did the motion of pulling it back. Nothing happened. I was still falling. I closed my eyes and focused on Lenny's second mouth. I pulled my arm back again, this time harder. Still nothing. I was beginning to sense the bottom was getting closer. I focused again, this time picturing my hand ripping out of the mouth. I did the motion again, still nothing. I landed in a gray mud-like substance. I began sinking into it. The more I moved, the further down I was pushed. I almost felt as though something was pulling me under. I looked up and saw what looked like Ashley's silhouette levitating above me. Her arms seemed to be extending outward, as if offering to pull me out. I tried to lift my arm, but the mud kept pulling me. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid, I repeated. I'm not afraid, I shouted before forcing my arm out the pit. I grabbed onto Ashley's hand, and she pulled me out of the mud. Next thing I knew, I was back in limbo. My hand was still inside Lenny's second mouth. He seemed to be asleep. He was moaning and making strange noises. I got the feeling someone was behind me. I turned around and saw Audrey, alive and well. I attempted to speak, but for some reason I couldn't. My mouth was dry. I pointed to my arm and pleaded. "Are you sure?" Audrey said. "It might get torn off." I nodded with absolute certainty. She grabbed my entrapped arm, which triggered a pleasurable pain to spike through my body. She noticed me twitching. I quickly threw up a thumbs up to let her know to keep going. I stuck my fingers between the teeth of the mouth while Audrey pulled at my arm, but it was useless. Our combined efforts weren't nearly enough to break Lenny's hold. That was when Ratuk lifted his bleeding body off the ground and dragged himself toward us. He stretched out his arms and wrapped them around my limb, but it still wasn't enough. I looked behind me. I saw some sort of yellow energy. It began as a spark, but it grew and duplicated. The sparks shaped into silhouettes that I recognized. My parents, my brother, my friends, Ashley, the blind phantom, Hugh, Luna, Sam, Emily, John, Lilith, Oculus, Isaac, they were all here. I needed them, and they needed me. Together, we all focused our strength. The teeth were beginning to loosen. My arm started to slowly slip out. Then all of a sudden, the teeth clamped down again, stabbing deeper into my arm. Lenny's eyes popped open, and he grinned. "What do we have here?" He threw one of his tentacles forward, shoving Audrey and Ratuk onto the ground. My connection to the spirits broke, and they all vanished. Lenny lifted his body higher and higher. "Honestly, kid, I'm disappointed. We're both loners. We belong together. But I guess a loner won't always be alone if he has friends. And let's face it, friend is just another word for soon-to-be enemy." I grabbed my arm and spat. "Won't you ever shut up?" His expression quickly shifted from sadistic to appalled. I tore my arm out of his second mouth, leaving behind chunks of flesh. I jumped off the side of Lenny's body and fell towards the mountain. I landed at the base of the tall summit. I got a few bruises here and there, but nothing I couldn't walk off. I bolted forward. Normally when I ran this fast, I quickly grew tired, But the closer I got to the mountain, the more energetic I felt. Even my wounds slowly faded away. I climbed the rocks and ascended past the cliffs. Then he pursued me close behind. The peak of the mountain was only inches away. Somehow I knew it was the only way to stop him. I reached my hand out. Then he slung his tentacle around my neck and tried to pull me down the mountain. I struggled to keep my balance. Just let me help you already. I can make you lucid dream. You can finally give Ashley payback for abandoning you. I squeezed Lenny's tentacle. She's my friend. I tore the tentacle in half. And she doesn't deserve to die. I lunged forward. My momentum stopped midair. I was floating. Golden flames emanated from my skin. I'm lucid dreaming. This was it. This was Nirvana. The Odyssey wasn't getting to a place. It was getting to a feeling. The power flowed through my body. The ability to do anything I could imagine. I reached forward and pointed at Lenny. Wait, please don't. He got down and curled into a ball. Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. I don't want to die. Please. Some superior life form you turned out to be. I lifted up my hand and pointed at him. His wool mask regrew over his face. Quartz-like crystals grew out from his body. You'll regret this. His eyes lit up with the orange flame again. One day you'll understand. I ignored him and kept the process going. I levitated him up and held him above the chasm beside the mountain. You can't kill the unkillable. I always come back. The quartz grew over his face, trapping him in stasis. I gently lowered Lenny's crystal prison into the hole. It disappeared into the shadows. Gone, at last. At least now all those souls can finally rest in peace. I floated over to where Audrey and Ratic were standing. Using an illusion spell to trick Lenny into thinking he had already killed you? Brilliant! I mean, for a moment, I actually thought he had gotten you. Yeah, well, not all of it was an act, Ratic said as he lifted up his hand, revealing a large piercing in his chest. He fell to the ground. Audrey rushed to his side. Don't worry, look, I can heal you, I told him. No, don't. But look, kid, don't abuse your power. I learned my lesson too late. This is what I deserve. I just don't want you to end up like me. He slowly faded away. There was nothing left but a faint outline of his body. He deserved better, Audrey whispered sadly. I looked down at my hands. Ratic was right. One person didn't deserve this much power. I stretched my arms out and expelled the golden flames from my body. I fell to the ground. Audrey helped me back to my feet. Are you okay? What just happened? I'm taking things slow. I'm still just a kid. I'm not quite ready for universe-controlling power. Oh, and remember those Celestials invading your planet earlier? Yeah? You don't need to worry about them anymore. I took care of it. Before us was a white glow shaped like a door. That should be your way home, I said to Audrey. She looked at me and smiled. Keep making friends, kid. And you keep training your powers. But how will you get home? I'll find my way around. We exchanged final goodbyes, and she entered the glowing gateway, returning to her world. I took one last stroll through the surreal world. Without all the chaos and fear, it was quite peaceful. I looked at all the floating buildings and structures from all sorts of different eras. I eventually came to a door. I had recognized that door. Beside it was a little black typewriter sitting atop a brown wooden table. On the paper, freshly typed, was the question, "Is this the end?" I pondered it for a moment. I said out loud, "No, this is only the beginning." The typewriter came to life and typed a new message. Time will tell. I grasped the knob of the door. I turned around and took one last look at the chaotic beauty of this place. For a moment, I swear I saw all those spirits back again, waving goodbye as I opened the door. I didn't see what was on the other side. As I was opening it, I awoke from my dream. Only I wasn't me. The person who went to sleep and the person who woke up were not the same people. One of them had died and moved on. I was only in his place. I crawled out of bed. I checked the window. No void. I checked the closet. No monster. I looked under the bed. No sorceress. I really was awake. I looked at all the dirty laundry on my floor. The lone white sock I had seen before was now gone. Vanished. This room is long overdue for a clean. I began picking things up and piling them in a basket. Come to think of it, this whole place is kinda dusty. Maybe I should break out the vacuum. I thought about all those friends I hadn't talked to in ages. And you know what? Why waste a perfectly clean house? Thinking maybe it's time for a little reunion. Lenny's imprisoned body sat at the bottom of the chasm. But despite this, he was not alone. With him was a strange being. Most of his body was obscured by the darkness, but he appeared to be human, with glowing green eyes. Letting you live was Bradworth's second dumbest decision. He lifted up his hand and placed it on the surface of Lenny's cocoon. His first dumbest was ending his lucid dream. Faint golden flames flowed out of the man's hand. A large crack broke across the side of the quartz prison. Time will tell, won't it, Lenny?